They called him the Silent Prince of New York, a 4-year-old boy who had never spoken a word, never reacted to a sound, and was deemed the greatest failure of the Castellano crime family. To the outside world, Roman Castellano was a ruthless kingpin who had everything but behind the closed doors of his penthouse. He was a father watching his legacy crumble. Everyone from the top specialists at Mount Sinai to his own cruel fiancée told him the boy was broken, hopeless. Until a quiet, invisible maid stepped out of the shadows. She didn't bring a weapon. She didn't bring an excuse. She reached into her apron and pulled out a single, strange object that would not only save the boy's life, but bring the entire Mafia underworld to its knees. This is the story of how the unlikeliest woman changed everything. The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling glass of the penthouse overlooking Central Park. But inside the library of the Castellano estate, the silence was suffocating. Roman Castellano, the don of the East Coast mob, stood by the window. He wore a bespoke Brioni suit that cost more than most people earned in a year, and on his wrist sat a Patek Philippe Nautilus that he hadn't bothered to wind in days. He stared at his reflection, noting the grey hairs prematurely invading his temples. He was 32, but he felt 100. Behind him, sitting on a Persian rug that was likely worth a small house, was Leo. 4 years old. Blonde curls, wide blue eyes that looked exactly like his late mother's. But unlike other children his age, Leo didn't play with the die-cast Ferraris scattered around him. He simply sat rocking back and forth, slightly staring at the vibration of the rain hitting the glass. "He's doing it again, Roman." The voice cut through the room like a serrated knife. Roman didn't turn around. He knew exactly who it was. Bianca, his fiancée. Bianca was beautiful, in the way a diamond is beautiful, cold, hard, and sharp enough to cut you. She walked into the library, her heels clicking rhythmically on the hardwood. She stopped a few feet from Leo, looking down at the boy with a mixture of pity and undisguised disgust. "The gala is in 3 hours," Bianca said, smoothing her silk dress. "We need to decide what to do with him." Roman finally turned. His eyes were dark, exhausted. "He has a name, Bianca. It's Leo. I know his name," she snapped, walking over to the wet bar to pour herself a drink. "But the board is already whispering, Roman. Your Uncle Vittorio is telling the capos that your line ends with you, that you have a defective heir, a boy who is not just deaf, but slower, unresponsive. The doctors said his auditory nerves are severed." Roman said, his voice low. "It's not his mind. It's his ears." Is it Bianca took a sip of vodka? He doesn't look at you when you wave. He doesn't cry when he falls. He's a ghost Roman. And ghosts can't run an empire. Roman clenched his jaw so hard his teeth ached. He wanted to scream at her, to throw her out, but he knew she was right about the politics. The Castellano family was a pack of wolves. If they sensed weakness, they would eat him alive. And a deaf, unresponsive son was blood in the water. In the corner of the room, a young woman in a grey maid's uniform was quietly dusting the bookshelves. Her name was Eleanor Brooks. She had been working at the penthouse for 3 months, and in that time Roman had probably spoken 10 words to her. She was invisible. Average height, brown hair tied back in a severe bun, no makeup. She kept her head down, did her work, and disappeared. But Elena wasn't just dusting. She was watching. She watched Leo. She saw things the expensive doctors from the Upper East Side didn't see. She saw how Leo would press his hand against the floorboards when the subway rumbled deep beneath the building. She saw how he would stare at the heavy bass speakers of the entertainment system when Roman watched the news. Elena knew something, but she was just a maid, a nobody with a fake resume and a past she was trying to outrun. Speaking up meant being noticed, and being noticed meant death. "Leave him here," Bianca said, breaking the silence. "The nanny can watch him. You can't bring him to the gala, Roman. Last time he knocked over a waiter because he didn't hear him coming." It was humiliating. Roman looked at his son. Leo was stacking blocks now, his focus intense. Roman felt a familiar ache in his chest, a crushing weight of failure. He loved the boy, but he didn't know him. He couldn't talk to him. He couldn't comfort him. "Fine," Roman whispered, defeated. "He stays." Bianca smiled, a victorious curve of red lips. "Good. Now go change. You need to look like a king tonight." As Roman walked past his son, he rested a hand on Leo's head for a brief second. Leo didn't flinch. He didn't look up. He just kept stacking blocks. Roman walked out. Bianca followed. The heavy oak doors clicked shut. Elena stopped dusting. She looked around to ensure the security cameras were in their usual sweeping rotation. When the lens turned away, she dropped the feather duster and walked over to Leo. She didn't wave her hands or snap her fingers like the doctors did. She knelt on the floor, placing her hand flat on the wood next to his. She tapped a rhythm. Thump, 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 thump. Leo paused. He felt the vibration. He turned his head, his big blue eyes locking onto Elena's. She smiled, a warm, genuine expression that transformed her plain face. She reached into her apron pocket. She wasn't supposed to have personal items on duty, but she risked it every day. She pulled out a small silver tuning fork. She struck it against her knee, making the tines vibrate invisibly fast, and then gently pressed the stem of the fork against Leo's collarbone. Leo's eyes went wide. His mouth opened in a silent "oh." He could feel the sound resonating through his bones, bypassing his broken ears, and traveling straight to his brain. He giggled, a rusty, unused sound that broke Elena's heart. "You're in there, aren't you, little lion?" she whispered, though she knew he couldn't hear the words. "They think you're empty, but you're just locked in a soundproof room." She heard footsteps in the hallway, heavy ones. Elena quickly shoved the tuning fork back into her pocket, stood up and grabbed her duster. The door burst open. It wasn't Roman. It was Vittorio Roman's uncle, the man who wanted the throne. He was accompanied by 2 massive bodyguards. Vittorio was a man of 60, with a face like tanned leather and eyes like coal. He looked at Leo with pure malice. Still playing with blocks, Vittorio sneered. "Pathetic." He looked at Elena. "You, girl." Elena froze, keeping her head down. "Yes, sir. Get the boy out of here. Put him in his room. I have a meeting here in 5 minutes, and I don't want to look at him." "Mr. Castellano isn't home, sir," Elena said quietly. He gave instructions for Vittorio stepped forward and backhanded Elena across the face. It was a casual strike, but it sent her stumbling back into the bookshelf. "I am the underboss of this family," Vittorio spat. "When I give an order, the help obeys. Move the defect. Now." Elena touched her stinging cheek. She looked at Leo, who was now trembling, sensing the aggression in the room, even if he couldn't hear the slap. "Yes, sir." Elena said, her voice trembling with suppressed rage. She walked over to Leo, scooped him up, and carried him out. As she passed Vittorio, the old man muttered to his guard, "If Roman doesn't get rid of the kid soon, we'll have to do it for him. A retard cannot inherit the seat." Elena held Leo tighter. She reached the nursery, closed the door, and locked it. Her heart was hammering against her ribs. She wasn't just a maid. She was a woman with a doctorate in audiology from MIT, a woman who had been framed for medical malpractice by a powerful pharmaceutical company she had tried to expose. She was in hiding. But looking at Leo, terrified and isolated, she knew she couldn't stay hidden much longer. The annual Castellano Foundation Gala was held at the Pierre Hotel. It was an event dripping in gold champagne and blood money laundered through charity. Every major crime family in the tri-state area was represented alongside politicians, judges, and unsuspecting celebrities. Roman stood at the center of the ballroom, shaking hands. He was charming, lethal, and utterly distracted. He kept checking his phone, looking at the camera feed from Leo's room. The boy was asleep. "Stop checking on him," Bianca hissed, linking her arm through his. She was wearing a red dress that screamed for attention. "Focus on the senator. He's walking over." Senator Holloway, a corrupt man with a gleaming white smile, approached with a glass of scotch. "Roman, wonderful party. Shame about the son, though. I heard he's progressing poorly." Roman stiffened. "Leo is fine, Senator." Of course, Holloway said, his eyes darting to Vittorio, who was holding court in the corner. "But stability is key in our business. People get nervous when the line of succession is unclear." The implication was obvious. Get a new heir or get replaced. Suddenly, a commotion erupted near the entrance. The security guards were shouting, "You can't go in there. I need to speak to Mr. Castellano." "It's an emergency." Roman turned. He recognized the voice. It was the maid. Elena. She was still in her uniform, which was wet from the rain. Her hair was messy. Her cheek was bruised where Vittorio had hit her, and she looked wild. She was wrestling with two of Roman's security men. "Let her go," Roman barked, his voice silencing the nearby conversations. He strode over Bianca, trailing behind him, looking furious. "What is the meaning of this?" Bianca shrieked. "She's the help." "Why is she here?" Elena broke free from the guards, panting. She locked eyes with Roman. "Sir, you need to come home. Now." "Is it Leo?" Roman felt his blood turn to ice. "Is he hurt?" "No," Elena said, catching her breath. "But he's in danger. I heard them talking. Your uncle and the doctor you hired. They aren't trying to cure him, Mr. Castellano. They're drugging him." A gasp rippled through the crowd. Vittorio, who had been laughing across the room, froze. He set his glass down and walked over his face a mask of deadly calm. "The girl is delusional," Vittorio boomed. "She's a thief. We caught her stealing silver earlier, and now she makes up lies to save her job." He looked at the guards. "Take her out back and teach her a lesson." "No," Elena shouted. She reached into her pocket. Every bodyguard in the room drew their gun. "Drop it!" someone yelled. "Don't shoot," Roman ordered, stepping between his men and the maid. He looked at Elena. Her hand was trembling, clutching something inside her wet apron. "Elena, show me your hands." Slowly. "I'm not a thief, Roman," she said, using his first name for the first time. The disrespect made the crowd murmur, but she didn't care. And your son isn't stupid. He isn't broken. He's just unconnected. What are you talking about? Roman demanded. Show him, Bianca yelled. Shoot her. Roman. She's embarrassing us. Elena pulled her hand out. She wasn't holding a gun. She wasn't holding stolen jewelry. She was holding a crude, strange-looking device. It looked like a pair of heavy-duty construction headphones, but stripped down to the wires with a small metal box duct-taped to the side. It was ugly makeshift and raw. What is that garbage? Vittorio scoffed. It's a bone conduction prototype, Elena said, her voice gaining strength. I built it in your basement with parts from an old radio and the nursery monitor. Your doctors told you his auditory nerve was dead. They lied. His nerve is intact. It's his middle ear bones that are fused to a condition called congenital ossicular fixation. It's rare, but it's treatable. She stepped closer to Roman, ignoring the guns pointed at her head. They told you he was brain damaged, so you would give up on him, Elena said, pointing a shaking finger at Vittorio. So you would step down and let him take over. Vittorio's face turned purple. Lies kill her. Wait, Roman said. His voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of death. He looked at the device in her hand. You built this? Yes. Does it work? I tested the theory with a tuning fork today. He responded. He laughed, Roman. He laughed. Roman felt tears prick his eyes. He hadn't heard his son laugh in years. Bring the boy, Roman ordered. Roman. You can't be serious, Bianca said, grabbing his arm. You're going to let a maid perform science experiments on your son in the middle of a gala. This is insanity, I said. Roman roared, turning on his fiancée with eyes that burned like hellfire. Bring me my son. The room went deathly silent. 2 guards scrambled out the door to the waiting limousine where the driver had Leo. 10 agonizing minutes passed. The guests watched in stunned silence. Vittorio stood with his arms crossed, looking confident. When this fails, the old man sneered, I'm going to kill her myself. The doors opened. The guard carried Leo in. The boy was wearing his pajamas, looking sleepy and confused by the bright lights and the crowd. Roman took his son. He held him close, smelling the baby shampoo in his hair. He looked at Elena. Do it, Roman said. Elena stepped forward. Her hands were steady now. She gently placed the strange headset over Leo's ears. She adjusted the metal pads, so they rested firmly against the bone behind his ears, not over the ear canal itself. She pulled a small screwdriver from her pocket and tweaked the dial on the metal box. It's going to be loud at first, Elena whispered. It bypasses the ear. It vibrates the skull directly to the cochlea. She flipped a switch. A soft hum emitted from the device. Leo went rigid in Roman's arms. The boy's eyes flew open. He grabbed the headset, trying to pull it off, but Elena gently held his hands. Talk to him, Elena said to Roman. Say something. Roman's throat was tight. He looked down at the boy he had given up on. Roman choked out. Leo. It's Papa. Leo stopped struggling. He tilted his head. He looked at Roman's lips, then at his eyes. Roman felt a vibration against his chest as Leo made a sound, a clumsy, loud, beautiful sound. Pa! Pa! It wasn't perfect speech. It was the mimicry of the vibration he was feeling. The glass slipped from Bianca's hand and shattered on the floor. Leo reached up his small fingers, trembling, and touched Roman's mouth. He smiled a brilliant smile that lit up the entire ballroom. Roman fell to his knees, clutching his son, burying his face in the boy's small shoulder. He sobbed unashamed in front of 500 gangsters. Elena stood back, a tired smile on her face, but the moment of joy was shattered instantly. "It's a trick," Vittorio shouted, pulling a pistol from his jacket. "She's a witch. It's a trick." He aimed the gun at Elena. The sound of the gunshot was deafening in the enclosed ballroom, shattering the moment of miracles into a spray of panic. The bullet missed Elena by inches, burying itself in the heavy velvet curtains behind her. Before Vittorio could fire again, Roman moved. He didn't move like a father. He moved like the killer the streets had raised him to be. He shoved Elena and Leo behind the heavy marble pillar, drawing his own weapon, a sleek black Beretta, from his waistband in a blur of motion. Bruno Roman roared. His head of security, a mountain of a man named Bruno, was already moving. He tackled Vittorio, knocking the old man's aim wide as a second shot tore into the ceiling chandelier, raining crystals down on the screaming guests. "Get them out," Roman commanded, firing 2 suppression shots toward Vittorio's men, who were now scrambling to draw their weapons. The gala had turned into a war zone. Bruno hauled Vittorio to the ground, punching the older man unconscious, but Vittorio's personal guard, a squad of 6 mercenaries, opened fire. "Go." The kitchen exit. Roman grabbed Elena's arm. She was clutching Leo so tight her knuckles were white. The boy was crying now, the sudden noise of the gunfight overwhelming his new sensitive hearing device. Elena didn't freeze. She didn't scream. She ran. They burst through the swinging kitchen doors, dodging terrified waiters, dropping trays of lobster and filet mignon. Roman was right behind them, his gun raised, checking every corner. They spilled out into the alleyway, where the rain was still pouring in sheets. "The limo is compromised," Roman shouted over the thunder. "Vittorio's men will be watching it." He scanned the alley. A black delivery van was idling the driver, smoking a cigarette. Roman ran up, pulled the driver out, and threw a wad of cash, probably $5,000, onto the wet pavement. "Van's mine." Roman growled. "Get in," he yelled to Elena. She scrambled into the passenger seat, buckling Leo into her lap. Roman jumped behind the wheel, gunning the engine. The tires screeched as they peeled out of the alley, just as 3 men in suits burst through the rear door, firing wildly at the retreating vehicle. Roman didn't slow down until they were on the Brooklyn Bridge, weaving through traffic at 90 miles an hour. The city lights blurred into streaks of gold and red. Only when the skyline of Manhattan was shrinking behind them did the adrenaline begin to fade, replaced by a cold, sharp anger. Roman looked at the woman sitting next to him. She was soaking wet, her maid's uniform torn at the shoulder, her hair plastering to her face. She was checking Leo, whispering soothing words, adjusting the volume on the strange device to dampen the roar of the engine. "Who are you?" Roman asked. His voice was low, dangerous. Elena didn't look up. "I told you. I'm Elena. Maids don't build neuro-bypassing medical devices in a basement, Elena. Maids don't stand still when a gun is pointed at their face." Roman took a sharp turn, heading toward a safe house in the Hamptons, a property listed under a shell corporation that even his uncle didn't know about. "I'm going to ask you one more time. And if you lie to me, I'm pulling this car over and leaving you on the side of the highway." Elena looked at him. Her eyes were dark, intelligent, and exhausted. "My name is Dr. Elena Cross," she said softly. "I was the lead audiologist at the biotech firm Neurosonics in Boston." Roman's grip on the steering wheel tightened. Cross. The fugitive. "I'm not a fugitive," she said bitterly. "I'm a whistleblower. 2 years ago, I developed a cochlear implant that didn't require invasive surgery. It was revolutionary. It was cheap to make. It would have saved millions of people's hearing." "So what happened?" "It worked too well," Elena said, stroking Leo's hair. "My board of directors realized that if we cured hearing loss with a $50 device, they couldn't sell their $30,000 surgical implants anymore. They shelved the project. When I tried to release the schematics online for free, they accused me of corporate espionage. Then a patient of mine died, a mysterious overdose. They pinned it on me." Roman watched the road, his mind racing. He knew how the world worked. Powerful men crushed anyone who threatened their profits. It was no different from the mob, just cleaner suits. "So you ran," Roman said. "I had to. I changed my name, dyed my hair, and took jobs where no one looks at you. Cleaning crews, kitchen staff, housekeeping." She looked down at Leo. "When the agency sent me to your penthouse, I just wanted to keep my head down, save enough money to leave the country. But you didn't," Roman said. "You stayed." "I saw Leo," she whispered. "I saw a boy who was being treated like a broken doll, when all he needed was a key to unlock the door. I couldn't leave him in the silence, Roman. I couldn't." Roman felt a lump in his throat. He looked at his son, who was finally asleep in Elena's arms, the device still humming softly against his skull. For 4 years, Roman had hired the most expensive specialists in the world. They had all failed. And here was a woman, hunted and terrified, who had risked her life to give his son a voice, simply because it was the right thing to do. "Thank you," Roman said. It was the first time in his life he had said those words, and meant them completely. Elena looked at him, surprised by the vulnerability in the Mafia Don's face. "You don't need to thank me. Just don't let them take it away from him. I won't," Roman vowed. "And I won't let them take you either." They drove in silence for another hour, the tension shifting from fear to something else. Something magnetic. The safe house was a modern fortress of glass and concrete built into the side of a cliff overlooking the Atlantic Ocean. It was cold, minimalist, and impenetrable. Roman carried Leo inside, laying him on the plush sofa in the living room. Elena stood awkwardly in the center of the room, shivering in her wet clothes. "There are clothes in the master bedroom." "Closet," Roman said, locking the heavy steel front door and engaging the security system. "Bianca keeps some things here. They should fit you." At the mention of Bianca's name, the air in the room grew heavy. "Where is she?" Elena asked. "Your fiancée. You left her at the gala." Roman walked to the liquor cabinet and poured 2 glasses of amber whiskey. He handed one to Elena. "Bianca is a survivor. She'll spin this. She'll say she was a victim of Vittorio's madness. But right now, I don't care about Bianca. I care about who authorized the medication that was poisoning my son." Elena took the drink, her hands shaking slightly as the adrenaline crashed. It was ototroxin. It's a heavy sedative used for psychiatric patients. In high doses, it causes temporary nerve paralysis. It mimics deafness and cognitive delay. "Vittorio couldn't have dosed him alone," Roman said, pacing the room. "He doesn't live at the penthouse. He visits maybe once a month. Someone on the inside had to be administering it daily. Elena took a sip of the whiskey, the burn grounding her. The nanny. Mrs. Gable has been with the family for 30 years. Roman shook his head. She's loyal to the bone. She wouldn't hurt Leo. Then who? Roman stopped pacing. He stared at his reflection in the dark window. The storm outside was raging waves crashing against the cliffs below. A terrible thought was forming in his mind, a puzzle piece he didn't want to fit. Bianca, he whispered. She hated him, Elena said softly. I saw the way she looked at him, like he was a stain on her perfect life. Roman slammed his glass down on the table, shattering it. She wanted me to institutionalize him. She kept pushing for it. He's broken Roman. Send him away, Roman. If I sent him away, I would lose my claim to the family trust. The Castellano Trust stipulates that the heir must live in the family home. If Leo is gone, the money goes to the next of kin, Elena finished, or the spouse. If we married and Leo was out of the picture, she would control half the empire. Roman ran a hand through his hair, furious at his own blindness. I was going to marry the woman who was poisoning my son. He looked at Elena. She looked small in the large room, but her eyes were fierce. She wasn't just a doctor. She was a fighter. Go change, Roman said, his voice softer now. You're freezing. We'll figure this out in the morning. Elena nodded and disappeared into the bedroom. Roman sat on the floor next to the sofa where Leo slept. He watched his son's chest rise and fall. He reached out and gently touched the metal device Elena had built. It was ugly, wrapped in electrical tape, but to Roman it was the most beautiful thing in the world. 20 minutes later, Elena returned. She was wearing one of Bianca's silk robes, a deep emerald green that contrasted with her pale skin. Her hair was down now, drying in soft waves around her shoulders. Without the severe maid's bun and the grey uniform, she looked breathtaking. Roman stood up. The air between them crackled. How is he? She asked, nodding toward Leo. He's dreaming, Roman said. He's making sounds in his sleep. He never used to do that. Elena walked over and knelt beside Leo, checking the battery pack on the device. His brain is trying to categorize the new input. It's like suddenly seeing color after living in a black and white world. It's exhausting for him. She looked up and found Roman standing much closer than she realized. He smelled of rain, expensive cologne, and danger. Why did you really do it, Elena? Roman asked, his voice a low rumble. You could have kept your head down. You could have escaped to Europe next month. Why risk your life for a gangster's son? Elena stood up, facing him. She was inches away. Because I lost a child once, she confessed, the words tearing out of her. Years ago, before the scandal, I couldn't save her. So when I saw Leo, when I saw that I could save him, I didn't have a choice. Roman's eyes searched hers. He saw the pain there, deep and old. He reached out his rough hand, cupping her cheek. It was a tentative, gentle gesture. You saved me too, Roman whispered. He leaned in. Elena didn't pull away. Her breath hitched. Their lips met softly at first, then with a desperate, hungry intensity. It wasn't the polished, cold kissing of his society life. It was raw. It tasted of whiskey and salvation. Roman wrapped his arms around her waist, pulling her flush against him. Elena's hands found their way into his hair, pulling him closer. For a moment, the Mafia, the guns, and the danger didn't exist. There was only the fire between them. But the moment was broken by a sound. Not a gunshot. A beep. Roman pulled back instantly, his eyes snapping to the security console on the wall. A red light was blinking. Motion detected. Perimeter fence. Sector 4. They found us, Roman hissed. How? Elena gasped, her face pale. We weren't followed. Roman looked at Leo. He rushed over to the boy, patting down his pajama pockets. Nothing. He checked the collar. Nothing. Then he looked at the shoes. He ripped Leo's left sneaker off. He tore out the sole. Inside, blinking with a tiny red LED, was a tracker the size of a coin. Bianca Roman growled, crushing the tracker in his hand. She bought these shoes for him last week. She's been tracking him the whole time. The glass of the front window shattered as a canister smashed through, skittering across the floor. Hiss. White smoke began to fill the room. Tear gas. Get Leo, Roman shouted, grabbing his gun from the table. Get to the basement. There's a tunnel. Eleanor grabbed the sleeping boy, who woke up screaming as the smoke hit his lungs. Stay low, Roman commanded, firing blindly out the shattered window to suppress the attackers. Shadows were moving on the patio. Laser sights cut through the smoke. These weren't street thugs. These were professionals. Roman ushered Elena and Leo toward the heavy oak door that led to the wine cellar. He shoved them through. Lock it from the inside, Roman yelled. Don't open it unless you hear my voice, Roman. No, Elena cried, reaching for him. Come with us. I have to buy you time, Roman said, his eyes blazing. He looked at her one last time, a look of searing intensity. Go. He slammed the door shut. Elena heard the lock click. Then she heard the front door blow off its hinges, followed by the deafening roar of automatic gunfire. Clutching Leo, she ran down the dark stairs into the bowels of the house, the sound of war raging above her head. She realized with a terrifying clarity that she had fallen in love with the devil, and he was currently walking through hell to keep them safe. The tunnel was damp, smelling of salt water and old earth. Elena ran the flashlight on her phone, cutting a thin beam through the darkness. Leo was heavy in her arms, but adrenaline made him feel weightless. Above them, the muffled sounds of gunfire had ceased. That terrified her more than the noise. Silence meant the battle was over. Silence meant Roman was either dead or taken. They emerged onto a rocky beach at the base of the cliffs. The storm was brutal here, the wind whipping the ocean into a frenzy. Elena stumbled, falling to her knees in the wet sand. Leo cried out, the strange headset slipping from his ears. It's okay. Shh, it's okay. Elena gasped, fumbling to reattach the device. She looked up at the cliff. The safe house was ablaze. Flames licked the night sky, casting an orange glow on the churning black water. Eleanor. A voice from the shadows. Eleanor spun around, grabbing a heavy rock from the sand, ready to fight. It wasn't an enemy. It was Bruno. The massive head of security was limping badly, clutching his side, where a dark stain was spreading on his shirt. He was leaning against a piece of driftwood, his face pale. Bruno Elena scrambled over to him. Where is Roman? Bruno coughed, spitting blood. They took him. Vittorio, he didn't want a martyr. He wants the signature. He needs Roman to sign over the trust before he kills him. Elena felt a cold dread settle in her stomach. We're the old meat-packing plant in the Bronx. Bruno wheezed. Vittorio's territory. It's a fortress. We can't. We can't get him out. I'm the only one left." Elena looked at the burning house, then at Leo, and finally at the wounded giant before her. She was a doctor, a scientist. She wasn't a soldier, but she looked at the device on Leo's head, the device she had built from scraps to do the impossible. "We don't need soldiers," Bruno Elena said, her voice hardening. "We need a ghost." "What are you talking about?" Bruno groaned. "Vittorio thinks I'm just a maid. Bianca thinks I'm a nuisance. Neither of them knows who I really am," Elena said. She stood up, the wind whipping her hair. "I am Elena Cross. I designed the security encryption for neurosonics. I know how to break into systems that don't want to be broken." She looked at Bruno. "Can you get us to a computer, a real one?" Bruno nodded slowly. "I have a safe house in Queens. Basement setup. But Elena, Roman is tough, but they will break him. We don't have time. They won't break him tonight," Elena said, looking at the fire one last time. "They need him lucid for the board meeting tomorrow. That gives us 12 hours. She picked up Leo. The boy looked at her, his eyes wimple and trusting. He touched her face and made a sound. "Ma." Elena's heart shattered and reformed into something indestructible. "Let's go." Three hours later, in a cramped basement apartment in Queens, Elena was a different woman. She had traded the silk robe for a pair of Bruno's oversized sweatpants and a black t-shirt. She sat in front of a bank of monitors, her fingers flying across a keyboard. The screen was a waterfall of code. Bruno sat in a chair while she stitched up his side. He watched her in awe. "I thought you were a hearing doctor." "I'm an audiologist with a PhD in electrical engineering," Elena muttered, not looking away from the screen. "Sound is just data, and right now I'm listening to Vittorio's phone calls." She hit a key. A grainy audio file began to play through the speakers. "He's stubborn. He hasn't signed yet." It was Bianca's voice. Cold, impatient. "Use the pliers." Vittorio's voice answered. "He'll sign before the sun comes up." "No. If he looks tortured, the board won't accept the transfer of power. They need to see a man who is mentally unfit, not physically broken. Drug him. Use the scopolamine. Make him pliable." Elena paused the recording. Her hands were shaking, but not from fear. From rage. "They are going to drug him into a stupor and parade him in front of the Mafia commission tomorrow at the Majestic Hotel," Elena said. "They'll declare him mentally incompetent, claim Leo is a vegetable and Bianca will take conservatorship over the estate." "So we hit the hotel?" Bruno asked, checking the magazine of his pistol. "I can call in a few favors. Get maybe 5 guys. 5 guys against Vittorio's army." "It's suicide," Elena said. She turned to look at Leo. The boy was sitting on the floor, playing with the dismantled parts of a radio Elena had given him. He was fascinated by the wires. "We don't hit them with guns," Elena said, a dangerous idea forming. "We hit them with the truth. But we need to get into that meeting room. You can't just walk into a Mafia commission meeting." Bruno scoffed. "They check everyone. You're on the hit list." "I'm not going as Elena the maid," she said, standing up. She walked over to a mirror on the wall. She grabbed a pair of scissors from the medical kit. She looked at her long brown hair. "Who are you going as?" Bruno asked. Elena slashed the scissors through her hair, hacking it off until it was a sharp, jagged bob. She turned to Bruno, her eyes burning. I'm going as the one thing Bianca fears most. The basement of the meatpacking plant was freezing. Roman sat tied to a steel chair, his face bruised, his lip split. His expensive suit was ruined, stained with his own blood. Bianca paced in front of him. She was immaculate, wearing a white power suit that looked starkly bright in the grimy dungeon. "Just sign the papers, Roman," she sighed, holding out a gold fountain pen. "Why make this difficult? You know you've lost. The maid is dead. The boy, well, he won't last long in the system without you." Roman spat blood onto the concrete floor. He looked up at her with a crooked grin. "You think Elena is dead? You didn't find a body, Bianca. The house burned to the ground." She snapped. "Nothing survived." "Elena survived," Roman rasped. "I know her. She's smarter than you. She's smarter than Vittorio. And right now she's coming for you." Bianca laughed. It was a cruel, hollow sound. "A maid. Coming for the Castellano family. You're delirious." "That's good. The doctor said the drugs would make you confused." She signaled to a man in the corner, a corrupt doctor holding a syringe. "Give him another dose," Bianca ordered. "We leave for the hotel in an hour. I want him smiling and nodding when I tell the commission he's stepping down." The doctor stepped forward. Roman struggled against the zip ties, but he was weak. The needle pierced his neck. The world went fuzzy. The cold room began to spin. "See you at the wedding, darling," Bianca whispered in his ear, her voice echoing like it was underwater. The majestic hotel ballroom was filled with the most dangerous men on the East Coast. The 5 families sat at round tables drinking espresso and speaking in hushed tones. The air was thick with cigar smoke and tension. At the head table sat the commission, 3 ancient dons, who served as the judges of the underworld. Vittorio stood at the podium, looking solemn. Bianca sat next to him, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. "My friends," Vittorio began, his voice grave. "It breaks my heart to call this meeting. My nephew Roman, the pressure has broken him. The grief over his defective son, the stress of the business. His mind has snapped." Murmurs filled the room. "He is here today," Vittorio continued, gesturing to the side door. "But he is not the man we knew." 2 guards dragged Roman in. He was walking, but barely. His eyes were glazed, his movements sluggish. They sat him in a chair next to Bianca. Roman the head. Don asked a man named Sal, "Is this true? Do you wish to relinquish control of the territory to your uncle and your fiancée?" Roman's head lolled. He blinked, trying to focus on Sal's face. He tried to speak, but his tongue felt like lead. I... "He is confused," Bianca said softly, placing a hand on Roman's shoulder. "He told me this morning. He just wants peace. He wants to retire." "We have the medical records," Vittorio said, waving a file. "Dementia, early onset, triggered by trauma. He is unfit to lead." Sal looked at Roman with pity. "Very well. If there are no objections, we will proceed with the transfer." "I object." The voice was clear, loud, and female. It cut through the room like a bell. Every head turned toward the main doors. Standing there was not a maid. It was a woman in a sharp black designer suit that fit her like armor. Her hair was cut in a severe modern bob. She wore high heels and walked with the confidence of a CEO. She was flanked by Bruno, who was looking menacing despite his limp, and shockingly she was holding the hand of a small boy in a tuxedo. Leo. "Who is this woman?" Sal demanded. "That's the maid," Bianca shrieked, standing up. "She's the one who poisoned him." "Kill her." "I am not a maid," Elena said, her voice amplified by a small microphone she had clipped to her lapel. She walked down the center aisle, Bruno keeping the guards at bay with a glare. "I am Dr. Elena Cross, and I am here to prove that Roman Castellano is being drugged." "She's lying," Vittorio yelled. "Security." "If you touch me," Elena said, calmly holding up a tablet. "The live stream from this device goes public. I am currently broadcasting the audio of this meeting to a secure server. If I don't enter a code in 5 minutes, the FBI gets a link." The room went deathly silent. The Dons looked at each other. The FBI was the magic word. "Let her speak," Sal ordered. Elena walked up to the head table. She looked at Roman. His eyes found hers. Through the fog of the drugs, a spark of recognition lit up. He tried to sit up straighter. "This boy," Elena said, placing a hand on Leo's shoulder, "is not defective. He is not a vegetable. He is the rightful heir, and he has heard everything." She knelt down to Leo. She adjusted the strange metal device on his head, which she had refined and polished overnight. It no longer looked like scrap. It looked like tech. "Leo," Elena said clearly. "Tell them who hurt Papa." The room held its breath. Bianca looked like she was about to vomit. Leo looked at the room full of gangsters. He looked at Bianca. He raised a small finger and pointed directly at her. Then he opened his mouth. The vibrations from Elena's voice had been training him all night. "She." Leo's voice was small, raspy, but undeniable. "She. Bad." A gasp rippled through the crowd. "He speaks." Sal asked, stunned. "He hears," Elena corrected. "And so does this." She tapped a key on her tablet. Suddenly, the speakers of the ballroom blasted audio. It was the recording from the night before. "Use the pliers. Drug him. Use the scopolamine." Bianca's voice filled the room. Vittorio's voice followed. Roman, fighting the drugs with every ounce of his willpower, gripped the table. He stood up, swaying. Bianca Roman growled. The sound was low, animalistic. Bianca backed away, her face draining of color. "It's fake. It's AI." She faked it. "Check his blood," Elena challenged. "Right now. Call an independent doctor. If there isn't scopolamine in his system, you can shoot me right here." Sal looked at Vittorio. The old uncle was sweating his eyes, darting to the exits. Vittorio Sal said, his voice ice cold. "Why are you sweating?" Vittorio drew his gun. "I won't let a cripple and a nurse take my empire," he screamed. He aimed at Roman. But before he could pull the trigger, a small, high-pitched noise pierced the air. Elena had pulled a second device from her pocket, a sonic emitter she had rigged. She cranked the frequency to a pitch that caused immediate, debilitating vertigo. Vittorio screamed, dropping the gun and clutching his ears as his balance center collapsed. The other guests winced, but they weren't in the direct line of the focused wave. Bruno moved. He didn't limp this time. He lunged forward, kicking the gun away and delivering a single knockout punch to Vittorio's jaw. The sound stopped. Roman stood there, breathing heavily. He looked at Bianca. She was trembling, trapped against the table. "Roman, please," she begged. "I did it for us. He made me." Roman stumbled forward. He didn't hit her. He simply reached out and ripped the engagement ring off her finger. "You're done," he whispered. He turned to the commission. He put his hand on Leo's head. "My son Roman," announced his voice gaining strength, "and the woman who saved the family." He looked at Elena. The look wasn't just gratitude anymore. It was absolute devotion. But as the guards dragged a screaming Bianca away, Elena swayed. The exhaustion, the stress, and the sleepless nights hit her all at once. She collapsed. Roman caught her before she hit the floor. The beep of the heart monitor was steady, a rhythmic metronome in the quiet luxury of the private hospital suite. When Elena opened her eyes, the world was blurry. She felt the heavy weight of exhaustion in her bones, a lingering shadow from the adrenaline crash at the hotel. She tried to sit up, but a warm, rough hand gently pushed her shoulder back down. "Easy," a voice rumbled. "You've been out for 2 days." Elena blinked, her vision clearing. Roman was sitting in a leather armchair beside her bed. He looked different. The bruises on his face from the dungeon were fading into yellow and purple shadows, but the haunted look in his eyes, the look of a man watching his empire crumble, was gone. In its place was a calm, terrifying certainty. He wore a fresh charcoal suit, his posture relaxed but commanding. "Leo." Elena croaked, her throat dry. "He's in the playroom next door with Bruno," Roman said, pouring her a glass of water. "He refuses to take the headset off. He's been listening to Mozart for 3 hours straight. He told me the violin sounds like yellow." Elena smiled weakly, taking the water. "Synesthesia. It's common when auditory pathways are suddenly stimulated. His brain is mixing the senses." "It's a miracle," Roman said, watching her intently. "You gave him the world, Elena." Elena set the glass down. The memory of the hotel ballroom came rushing back. The guns, the confession, the collapse. "Bianca Vittorio. Vittorio is in a federal supermax," Roman said, his voice devoid of emotion. "The recording you played, it didn't just implicate him in my poisoning. It tied him to 3 other RICO predicates. He'll die in a cage. And Bianca," Roman paused. He looked at his hands. "Bianca has been removed from the equation. She has been exiled to a convent in Sicily. If she leaves the grounds, she ceases to exist." Elena shuddered. It was a stark reminder of who Roman was. He wasn't just a grateful father. He was the Don. "And me?" Elena asked quietly. "The FBI was at the hotel, Roman. They know who I am. Neurosonics still has a warrant out for my arrest. I'm a fugitive." She moved to get out of bed. "I have to go. If they find me here—" "Stop," Roman said. He didn't move to stop her physically, but his voice was a wall. "You aren't going anywhere." "Roman, you don't understand. The corporation that framed me, they own senators. They own judges. They will bury me." Roman reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a thick, folded document. He tossed it onto the bedspread. "Read it." Elena picked it up. Her hands shook as she opened the blue folder. It was a legal contract, a transfer of ownership. "What is this?" "I had a busy 2 days," Roman said, leaning back. "While you were sleeping, I liquidated some assets. I bought a controlling stake in Neurosonics." Elena's jaw dropped. You bought the company." "I bought the board of directors," Roman corrected. "I walked into their headquarters this morning with 3 lawyers and a very persuasive detailed file on their illegal offshore accounts. It turns out people are very eager to sell when they realize the alternative is a federal investigation." He pointed to the bottom of the page. I fired the CEO who framed you. I dropped the lawsuit. The warrant has been recalled. And I appointed a new chief of research and development. Elena looked at the name typed on the line. Dr. Elena Cross. Tears welled in her eyes. You didn't have to do that. You saved my son, Roman said, standing up and walking to the edge of the bed. You saved my life. Buying a corrupt biotech firm was the least I could do. You're free, Elena. You don't have to hide anymore. You can be the doctor you were meant to be. Elena looked at the papers, then up at him. I don't want to go back to Boston. Roman went still. No. No, she whispered. My patient is here. Roman's expression softened the hard lines of the Mafia boss melting away to reveal the man beneath. He sat on the edge of the bed, taking her hand. His thumb traced the scars on her knuckles, scars she had gotten fighting for his family. I have a reputation, Elena, Roman said softly. I am a dangerous man. My world is violence and blood. Are you sure you want to stay in it? Elena squeezed his hand. I've seen your world, Roman. I saw the wolves in the ballroom. But I also saw a father who walked through fire for his son. I saw a man who protected a maid when he could have saved himself. She reached up and touched his face. I'm not afraid of the monsters, Roman. I know how to make them listen. Roman closed his eyes, leaning his forehead against hers. Then stay. Stay. And build your devices. Stay and cure the world. Just stay with me. Is that a command, Don Castellano? She teased gently. It's a plea, he whispered. He kissed her, then a slow, deep promise of a future that shouldn't have been possible. Six months later, the garden of the Castellano estate was in full bloom. It was a crisp autumn day, the leaves turning gold and crimson. A small orchestra was playing softly under a white gazebo. The guests were a mix of the underworld elite and the medical community, a strange, tense blending of two worlds that only one couple could bring together. Roman stood at the altar, looking more nervous than he had ever looked facing a gun. He adjusted his tie for the 10th time. Bruno, standing beside him as the best man, chuckled. Relax, boss. She's coming. And she was. Elena walked down the aisle, not in a maid's uniform, and not in a stolen robe. She wore a gown of white lace that seemed to glow in the sunlight. She didn't look like a fugitive. She looked like a queen. But the most important person wasn't the bride or the groom. Standing between them, holding the rings on a velvet pillow, was Leo. He was taller now, his cheeks rosy with health. The device on his head was gone. In its place was a sleek, almost invisible earpiece that Elena had designed the Castellano Model 1, soon to be released to the public, to help deaf children around the world. When Elena reached the altar, Roman took her hands. The priest began to speak, but Roman held up a hand. Wait, Roman said. He looked down at his son. Leo. Leo looked up. He grinned, missing a front tooth. He handed the pillow to Bruno and stepped forward. He didn't use sign language. He didn't hide. He looked at the crowd of hundreds. My... Leo started his voice clear and confident, practicing the speech he had worked on for weeks. My papa loves my mama. The crowd erupted in cheers. Tough men with scars wiped tears from their eyes. Roman picked Leo up, kissing his cheek, then turned to Elena. You gave him a voice? Roman said, his voice thick with emotion. No. Elena smiled, placing her hand over Roman's heart. We gave him a family. That's the only sound that matters. Roman kissed his bride as the sun set over the empire. They now ruled together. Not with fear, but with the unbreakable power of a silence finally broken. And that is the incredible story of the silent prince and the maid who saved him. From a basement workshop to the head of a Mafia empire, Elena proved that the most powerful weapon isn't a gun, it's the will to heal. Roman thought his son was broken, but he just needed someone to listen to him in a way no one else could. If this story touched your heart, or if you were cheering when Leo finally spoke at the wedding, please hit that like button. It helps us bring more dramatic stories to life. What would you have done in Elena's shoes? Would you have risked your life for a child that wasn't yours? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a twist. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next story.